Hello, welcome to Project 3, where I installed the production server on your network. My name is Blake Warren. I'm going to walk you through just a little bit about this project and installing that production server on your network and some of the vulnerabilities and different things like that. The first thing I want to show you is kind of what I want to talk about today. So um, I'm going to show you the production server and that it's actually running on your network. Um, show you some of the vulnerabilities that I found. It's running a program called Nmap, and how I established a backdoor account with root access, some of the interesting files I found on your servers. Um, I'm going to exploit several vulnerabilities and show you a couple on your web server and two on your production server as well. Show you some password cracking I did with some passwords I found on your servers. Um, and finally, some recommendations for what I think you should do to increase some of your security protocols. First thing, though, I want to talk about is just the whole overall goal of this project. I was tasked with installing and configuring the production server on your current network and discovering vulnerabilities on the production server and the web server that was already running on the network. Okay, so first, let's talk about the production server and just showing you that it's actually online and going here. So this was a ping I did. And as you can see down here, we pinged, here's the IP address for your production server. And as you can see, 60 packets transmitted, 60 received, 0% packet loss. So you can tell right there that that's working correctly. Okay. Once I got the production server installed, we started to go after and look for some vulnerabilities, some security vulnerabilities on this server. All right, so we used a program called Nmap. This is something you can use. I used it on a Kali Linux machine here, the Nmap program to run and find those vulnerabilities that you can see. So here's the command for that, sudo nmap -sv. Here's your production server IP address, and then the script vulnerabilities. The program ran. This is a scan, and this is not the entire scan here. This is just a portion of it. The entire scan is much longer and has many more vulnerabilities. But as you can see, here's a vulnerability right here. It gives you the port number. So this is port 21. This is the VSFTPD version 2.3.4 backdoor. The state of it is vulnerable, exploitable, and then it has a CVE number right here. What CVE numbers are common vulnerabilities and exposures. You can actually go to this website right here, cvedetails.com, and this will show you what these numbers mean. So you just put this number in 2011-22523, and that'll tell you the vulnerability and give you a description of it and how it can be exploited. Okay. Disclosure date, and then you can see there's many other vulnerabilities here too. And we'll go over several of these in a later slide here in just a minute, but it tells you the port numbers, what was vulnerable, CVE numbers on most of them. And if you can't find the CVE number, you can just search the vulnerability, and most likely you'll find how that can be exploited on your server. Here's the same thing I did on the web server, the same command with Nmap. And as you can see, these servers are pretty identical. So you can see there's the same exact vulnerability right there, the VSF TPD. And again, this is not the entire scan. It's just a portion of the scan. And you can see some CVE numbers down here popped up. Here, open SSL, cross protocol attack on TLS. So there's a lot of just vulnerabilities that can be exploited on these servers that we have to find a way to protect against. Can't protect against everything, but at least these ones that we know about, we definitely can put in some protections for those. So here's the actual exploits I used on your servers. First one is, this is what we just talked about, VSF TPD exploit. Here's your CVE number, and then here's what's called a CVSS score. That's your common vulnerability scoring system. So the higher the number out of 10, the more vulnerable that is. So as you can see, this is an extremely vulnerable exploit that gives you root access on the computer. The next one is a Samba exploit. Here's a CVE number for that. And again, a score of 10.0. So this is another one that's extremely vulnerable. This RMI Java is another exploit I used, CVE number. And then this one's not quite as high as these two, but it's still extremely vulnerable and can be very impactful on the system. And so the CVSS score actually takes into account vulnerability, so meaning how easily it can be done and also how impactful it can be. So a 10, like I said, is very impactful. The last one I exploited, and I'm going to go through all these on following slides too, but is the Sloloris, which is a denial of service attack. You can see right here, it's not, you can see the score is lower, and that's because this is an impactful attack, right? But it's not giving you root access on the system. So the score is not quite as high as some of these ones that give you root access on your system, on your server. All right, so here's the first one I want to talk about, the Samba exploit. We use a program called Metasploit. Makes it a little bit easier to exploit some of these vulnerabilities. You install it on your system, and the command is msf console to open that up. And we searched for Samba because I found that Samba vulnerability when I did the nmap. And we wanted to use this one right here, exploit the user map underscore script right here. So you can see excellent is the rank of this, so it's a very good exploit to use. Once we do that, come back over to this one. We have to set the options on it. Okay, so once you use the Samba exploit on Metasploit, it gives you some options. So really, there's only two options on this one: the port number and then the IP address. So we set the IP address here to your production server 192.168.0.19. Or no, sorry, that's the computer I'm on, right? But this was just the options page right here. And then I think right here is where we changed the R host. Yeah, so here's where we changed our R host to the web server. Sorry, this was for the web server. And changed the R host there. And then as you can see on this bottom one down here, we exploited it. And we've got root access right here. So this Samba gave you root access on the web server. Okay. The next exploit was also on the web server. This is the Sloloris exploit. Same thing, we searched for it. We found it. There was only one option when we searched Sloloris. We used this 0. Command was use 0. Then we changed the R host again. There's a little more options here, but we really only altered that R host, the target IP address, changed it to our web server. And then down here, you can see it's attacking that IP address of the web server, creating sockets, sending these keep alive headers, and this is the denial of service attack that's slowing that whole system down. Okay. The next exploit we did was on the production server. This is the one I talked about earlier, the VSFTPD exploit on our production server. And this one, same thing. We used our Metasploit to search for that exploit, and there was only one option. Then we changed our R host right here. And then after we changed the R host, we exploited this. And again, we have root access using this VSFTPD exploit on our production server. So very, very dangerous exploit, gives you root access, and we'll show you what we can do with that here in just a minute. The last one on the production server, again, this is another root access exploit. We used our Metasploit framework to search for it, found it. There's, again, more options on this one than some of the other ones, but we're really just changing the IP address for the target, leaving everything else pretty much the same. Lhost, that's our computer, obviously. We changed that and then ran it. And as you can see, we had to do a shell command to create a shell. And then ID, we have root access again, running this RMI Java exploit. So again, very dangerous. This was a 10 out of 10. on our CVSS score. Once I gained root access, I was able to create a backdoor account using this add user command. So I added user bwar1. If I was really hacking the system, I probably wouldn't use my name there, but I did. Easy password, probably wouldn't use that either if I was creating a real backdoor, but 12341. Then over here, this was adding that user that I just created to the root group. So by giving my backdoor access root access, or my this is the command sudo user mod -a, changing the group to root of bwar1. So that's giving my created backdoor root access. And as you can see down here, we have root access to all these files, and that's very dangerous because now I don't even have to go through Metasploit. I can just log on to the server and do whatever I need to do. So here's some of the files we found when we were exploiting the server. So let me zoom in a little bit on this so you can see a little more clearly what we did. So once we have our root access, we do this lsla command, a -la. That gives us the directory here. And then I saw the directory and I said, proprietary, that seemed interesting. So we changed it to proprietary. And then here's another directory of formulas. Well, formulas, that seems interesting. So when we listed out our formulas, you can see Carolina, Kansas, and Texas. So we looked at each one of these and they were recipes for barbecue sauce. So this is a proprietary recipe that you probably don't want anyone to have. And so now we've gotten it, the Texas recipe, the Kansas recipe, and the Carolinas recipe. And that was all just from hacking that system. Right here is some password hashes that I found on the system. Same basic, just searching the directories and opening up files, and you found all the password hashes, which I'm going to use here in a minute to do some password cracking. All right. So first thing we do is we've logged onto the system, gotten root access. Then we download from that system, we download the password file, we download the shadow file. Then we go over here and we combine those two files together using this command right here, sudo unshadow command, join that, create a new file called John's password. And then we use a program called John the Ripper to actually use those password hashes and usernames and decode what the password for each username is. And it doesn't get all of them, but it did get quite a significant portion of them. So you can see here's the John the Ripper program running. And then here is the passwords that it gave me. So username clog is a password 123456789. Not very safe. System, use Batman. Boris, just use password. Service, just use service. Jasper, 123456. And Aramis, 1Q2W3E. So we'll talk about this a little bit in recommendations, but those are not very strong passwords, and it did not take very long for this program to crack those passwords. Cracked them fairly easily. And then this John here is just a different view of the same thing up here. You can see clog 123456789. Same thing, service, Boris, password. So same idea down there. Let's talk about some recommendations here for what you can do, because obviously those vulnerabilities are very scary to see and see that it's that easily exploited. So here are some recommendations I have. So first off, we need to continue to patch and update the system. A lot of those vulnerabilities that you find on Nmap are patched already, and so if you have the correct updates or patches to the system, then they're going to stop those. Okay. Another thing is we need to remove or turn off unnecessary services. So whenever you install the server, go through the default settings and turn off some of those things that we don't use or don't need. When I can give you more recommendations on specific things at a later time, but that's just something we need to do anytime we install new devices on the network, or even old devices that we never really checked that on. Same thing with default passwords. So sometimes there'll be default passwords for these servers and things we're installing on our network. We need to make sure that we're changing those passwords because hackers can easily go and find those online and just use them. They don't even have to hack the system. They just use a default password and default username. Another thing is, which I showed you the passwords earlier and how those were very easy passwords to crack. We need to have some password requirements in place for all of our employees to use. So we're not using 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We're not using just the same as the username for our password. Those are extremely easy to crack even without password cracking programs. Someone might even just guess those. So we need to have some requirements, and we can talk more fully about what those requirements should be at a later time, but just we need to have some sort of requirement for those passwords. Intrusion detection system, I'll come back to that one in a second. Use the tools to scan your own system to discover those vulnerabilities. So your cybersecurity employees should be using Nmap as well to scan your systems and see what vulnerabilities are there and see if they can do this on their own. These are not difficult things to do. They can easily attempt to hack their own system and get in. And if they can get root access to those vulnerabilities, then we know that's something we need to investigate and figure out a way to stop that. All right. Installing an intrusion detection system. This is something, again, we can go into more detail later, but it's something we need to think about, especially as your network expands. Having a frontline system that can detect intrusions and can give you alerts and can stop some of those things. That'll be extremely helpful too. And then the last one, which is the biggest thing again, is just continue to invest time and money in training your staff. Okay, this is the biggest thing. There are way more of them than they are of you, and we need to continue to train them and that they know the proper security protocols and what to do in situations and passwords. They just need to be trained. So we need to continue to invest. And like I tell everyone too, that cybersecurity is an ever changing, ever evolving thing. And so we're going to have to continue to training them on new threats every single year because they're not going to be the same threats every single year. It's going to change and be different. All right. So we need to figure out a way to invest money in doing that. That probably will be one of the biggest things that can help your security. That's all I have to present to you today. So thank you. I hope this was helpful. Here's my contact information if you need it. And I look forward to hearing from you in the future.